we are ramping up families within days to take on skills teachers spend years perfecting. It's a steep learning curve. It'd be one thing if we were clicking on a Udemy course or uploading homework to Google Classroom, but we're also navigating a worldwide pandemic. Parents are asked to manage kids' normal education in a crisis. Today, we're with Dr. Sherri Sinicki, who will help us navigate schedules, feel the feels of the current state, and create a grace-filled home learning environment for our families to flourish. Learn how we interrupt the trauma of COVID-19 as we will be processing the difficulty of crisis learning. So it was 1986. I was 11, walking the halls of Dunaway Elementary School, and we had just started reading Tom Sawyer. I was still confused on why Tom was threatening to lick everyone. In a hallway, we passed the other fifth grade class, and I asked Matt Martinson, "What are we doing in social studies today?" He said with a yawn in his voice, "Oh, you get to see the space shuttle blow up." Oh, that Matt Martinson. So funny. We climbed the stairs to go to social studies. Jeff Sharp and I laughed about Matt's weird statement. Why would he say that? Does the space shuttle launch today? It wasn't big on my radar, but I knew a teacher was going into space. As we sat down, Ms. Zimmerman rolled out the 80s TV and pressed play on the VHS. Just like Matt Martinson predicted, we watched the Challenger explode. I don't remember the rest of the day. In science, we might have talked about the cell wall. In PE, not sure. But I do remember a shared trauma of the Challenger blowing up on screen. There are large collective events that create ripples in our shared psyche. Berlin Wall, 9/11, Trump's election. We are currently living through an unprecedented event of the world that the world is experiencing. Parents teaching their kids at home. And so that's our challenge for today. We're dealing with a shared trauma of COVID-19. How can we be effective in the education of our children? All right, so Carol Dweck her research was something that uncovered the concept of growth mindset, if you've heard of growth mindset. So here's a video of her talking about stress and the brain.
There's a part of the brain that is an emotional filter. It's called the amygdala. It's part of the limbic system. And when information comes into the brain, it will go someplace in the brain. But this switching station in the amygdala determines where it's going to go in the brain. So you have information coming in, and the metabolic state of this amygdala, how hyperactive it is, how much it's processing, how much energy it's using, will determine where it conducts information. So if the person is in a state of stress, the amygdala gets highly active. When that happens, the switching station sends everything that's coming in to the lower 80% of the brain. That's the part of the brain, that's the animal brain, the reactive, involuntary brain. The only behavior that comes out of there is a fight, flight, freeze, which is great for animals because if they are in some state of stress, they shouldn't be processing it and evaluating it. But we have the same system and it doesn't work well for us because turns out boredom, when we do neuroscanning of someone in a bored state, that shows their amygdala in the same hyperactive state that other stresses, such as hearing an alarm or things that in the wild you'd want to watch out for. So we need to keep that switching station in a state of low stress. And boredom, fear, concern about your language differences, fear of reading, test taking, those things turn the amygdala into a big stop sign.
We are with Dr. Sherri Sinicki, who is here to help us create a grace-filled home learning environment for our families to flourish. Dr. Sinicki,
Well, good afternoon.
what is crisis learning?
Well, crisis learning is what we're all doing right now. We are in the middle of this crazy pants thing, and I just want to be clear that crisis learning isn't just what your kids are doing, it's what you are doing, it's what teachers are doing, it's what everybody is doing, because we ended up in this freaky pandemic that apparently no one saw coming. So we have that, and there's this sense of everybody's learning everything really, really fast. And okay, I got to get my kid online. And okay, how do I do homework? Oh, wait, I have to cook dinner. Wait, I have to watch my kid too. Wait, I have a job. So everybody's doing everything, and nobody's doing anything really, really well. Because you can't. Because as Ms. Dweck says in your little noggin, what wasn't, I don't necessarily think she said quite out loud, is that fight or flight thing. When that switches on, everything's dysregulated. The kids are dysregulated, you're dysregulated, and you're in that state of fear. So everything is like this in front of your face, and nobody can concentrate on anything. And we're all in that a little bit because we've never done this before. I don't know if, well, I would hope people are familiar with Brene Brown. She has a new podcast out, and one of her podcasts is called FFT. I'm going to swear because it has a swear word in it. It's called Fucking First Time. And we are all in an FFT right now. It's the first time we've done this. And with that, everything just ramps up. And we just need to realize how to calm ourselves and how to realize we can't do everything. We can't. Nobody can. And that's okay. Feel that feel the feel of like, oh, I don't know how to do that. Name that feeling, and then let's move on and calm it. We talk about that a lot. We do that a lot as teachers. We have a training that some classes or some schools are in. It's called Ruler training, and I'm going to read it to make sure I get it right because I always mess it up. Ruler is recognizing emotions. That's your R, because sometimes kiddos and adults get in this emotional cycle and they don't realize they're in it. Sometimes I'm really crabby, like the Snickers commercial, and it's because I haven't eaten. It's not because I'm really mad at you. It's because I'm hungry. Those are disparate things. Those aren't the same thing. So, and you're going to see kidlets do that because they don't know how to handle that. They're scared, so they might be angry. They're scared, so they might be sad. They're mourning. Some of them are mourning their senior years. Some of them are mourning the fact they don't get to be at school. We have kids where school is their safe spot and they don't get to go there every day. So that's really hard. So recognizing what that emotion is. Our U is understanding the cause of your emotion and the consequence of your emotion. So sometimes we forget you can feel those feels. It's kind of like freedom of speech. You can say whatever you want, but there's consequences to what comes out of your mouth. The same thing happens with emotions. There are consequences to that.
So this isn't just learning how to do online learning for kids.
No, this is learning. I think to do online learning, I'm hesitant to call it online learning. I think we should call it, well, OD is calling it right now distance learning. One of the reasons I hesitate to call it online learning is because not every kid has access to online learning. Okay. You just don't. We have about over almost 300,000 kids right now who are in free and reduced lunch in the state of Oregon. We have almost twice that many who are on Medicaid and on CHIP. So these kids don't have the same access to that a lot of our students have. So to call it online learning, I think is a bit of a misnomer. I think it's distance learning. And to be quite honest with you, I'm not sure learning is where we're at there, because I think we're asking a lot. We're asking a lot of students. We're asking a lot of parents. We're asking a lot of our teachers.
What's the most important thing to be considering at this time?
Oh my God, your mental health, hands down. Mental health. Mental health is absolutely the number one thing to be thinking about right now.
Why?
Well, here's the deal. Back to our little Ms. Dweck there and her emotional thing. You can't learn anything if your switch is on. You can't learn anything if your emotions are here. You have to calm yourself and calm your kids before any education can happen. It's like asking kids when they come to school hungry to learn algebra. Okay, let's feed them first. Let's take care in our little Maslow triangle. Let's take care of our basic needs first. And some of those basic needs right now are the mental health of our country, not just of our students, but of our country. And we have an opportunity to be with our kids, which is awesome. But being with your kids in the house for 24 hours and being their teacher and being their disciplinarian and being their parent and being all the things you are normally is really, really difficult. And it is a big ask. So taking care, it's kind of like putting your, on the airlines when they tell you to put your mask on first, please put your mask on first. Okay. Regulate yourself so that you can help regulate them.
Okay.
Okay.
What are your suggestions in that? You are a teacher.
Mm-hmm.
Is it kind of like, what would be like a crash course in trying to navigate, a very small classroom? Because as a teacher, you probably have to learn that, like, to
Well,
regulate yourself, or
self-regulation is something everybody needs to learn. I think that teachers learn it a lot faster because you're put in that pot of boiling water really fast. So recognize, I don't think they're disparate things. I think that some of the things you do for your kids are the things that you do for self. Feel the feels that you're feeling. I mean, I'm sad we don't get to see our family like we normally get to see our family. We don't get to do all of the activities that we normally get to do, and mourn that and go, okay, this really stinks, or I'm sad. We call it naming. I say it's name it to tame it. Name what emotion you have, feel that emotion, and then let's move on and see how we can fix it. We do the same things for our students.
name it to what?
Name it to tame it.
Tame it. Oh, I like that.
Because if you are calm, your kids are going to take their cue from you. We know that. We know the more that we get amped up, our kids get amped up. I mean, we know that as parents. It's just different now because the outside world is kind of scary. It just is. It's scary for adults. It's super scary for kids. They're going to take their cue from you. You remain calm. You find your moment of zen, whether that is a cocktail as big as your head, like our barefoot Contessa just did, or whether that's a walk around the block, or time alone in your bedroom for a minute, whatever regulates you. Then you can help the littles. I would say one of the biggest lessons as a teacher is you stop taking things personally. When a kid blows up, it might not be at you. Or even if it is at you, you're like, yeah, that kind of sucks. Now here's your consequence, but let's sit down and talk about why you blew up. Is it because you're scared? Or is it because you're angry because you can't go to your friend's house? What's the why behind that? And once we figure that out, then you can go and you can do some of the education things. But I will say emotional regulation is the biggest, and the mental health is the biggest thing you can do.
So you said the word grace-filled. How do you do that?
Well, it's easier said than done. I think part of grace, my mini story on grace, I had my students pick a word this year at the very beginning of the year. And we wrote it on a 5x7 card, and they decorated it however. And it was a word they were going to carry with them. And this year for me, we were stepping into a big unknown in our school district. And I chose the word grace because you got to show that to people. You got to show it to yourselves, which is so much easier to say than to do, by the way. So when we're in this land of crazy pants, when everybody's switch is flipped, when everybody is learning new and it's everybody's FFT, right? You show grace. You show grace to the teachers who have never, ever had to turn stuff around on a dime and figure out how to give access to education to so many people. You show grace to yourself. For Pete's sakes, you're not a teacher, right? You know that. Teachers know that. Teachers are parents too, a lot of them. And you show grace to your kid because they've never done this before. It's not a free pass. It is not a free pass. You have to take ownership of whatever you do. But holy cow, you show grace to everybody, because in doing that, it's just going to calm, and it's going to make your switch less flippy, and make everything kind of coast in there so you can do the best that you can for your chicklets.
Do you have a thing that you do to kind of keep consistent at this time?
For me, my self-regulation, or
Yes, and kids, and yeah.
so I think things that are helpful for kids, for all kids, some sort of schedule. I mean,
Okay.
I think it's super really fun to not have a schedule for a while. Like, woo, it's spring break. I'm not having a schedule. And then that gets real old real fast.
Okay.
And we've had 2 weeks off, which is kind of like our, winter break. And now it's like a weird extended winter break, but it's really not a winter break. Some sort of schedule is helpful. I'm not saying get your kid up at the same time that they would get up for school. That's crazy pants. They can they get them up at a normal time, have them get up at a normal time. And then what do? What works for your family? I mean, my schedule that I keep, I get up, I get a cup of coffee, I watch the Today Show a little bit, and then I start getting my mojo going, and then I sit down at my computer, and then I start doing my Zoom sessions and teaching my kids. What works for you? If getting up and going for that walk first thing in the morning is what sets your little, as social distancing, if that resets you, awesome. That's what you should do. But try to keep a consistent way to do that. And kids thrive in a schedule. I know they say they're not going to, but they're wrong, because trust me, when we switch up their schedule at school, they're having like meltdowns. But what do you mean it's assembly schedule? It's assembly schedule. It's a little different. We're going to move on.
Okay.
So having some semblance of normal is a good thing.
Do you know, like, is it better to do like math in the beginning or math at afternoon? Have you noticed any trends that way?
I will tell you, when we are making the master schedule, and please understand, I teach at the junior high and high school level,
Okay.
that we try really, really hard to have the heavier academic classes in the morning.
Okay.
You don't want to be doing algebra like at 1 o'clock when you've had lunch and you want a nap and you've already done some other stuff. If that's not your gig, like, my dad used to say, eat the big frog first.
Okay.
And that is, I have said that to my students. I say it to my kids. It just means whatever is your heaviest lift, do that first. Like for me, it was math. Math was the one that I struggled with. And it's the first one that I did. It was the first homework I tackled, because I knew my English I could go ahead and do. If it's something different, if you are a math person, do your English first. But be cognizant of what your kid's learning style is and what your kid needs to do. Do they need to do a little bit and get up? I know some people they're like, nope, we're going to do 3 hours. I'm going to bust it out and I'm going to get it done. And their kids totally thrive. And that's great for them. Some people, not so much. Some people, I'm going to do this little bit of my English, get my English done. And then I'm going to take a 15-minute break and I'm going to come back and I'm going to do my science. And then I'm going to take a break and then I'm going to come back. I can't see having your kids sit truthfully, do not think they're going to sit for you for 6 to 8 hours a day like they do in school. It just isn't going to happen. I think the biggest thing is to understand that you're their parent, you're not their teacher, and just do the very, very best that you can. Truthfully. That is what we are all doing right now, is the very best that we can. And that is all that can be asked of us. I know that there are loads of memes going around talking about teachers and talking about how you're making it through the day and all of the things. Truthfully, this is just weird. And it's okay to acknowledge that it's just weird. And nobody has all the answers. And it's okay. It is okay one day to not do all the homework. It's okay to be like, screw it, this sucks. Where it's not worth the battle.
Yeah.
And then come back at it a different way. That's that grace part. So what you're seeing right now, in your first little your little sign at the top. Told you math was not my best one. Just putting that out there. So an adverse childhood experience. It's called an ACE. And it was developed a long time ago in a lab. And adverse childhood experiences can be a lot of things. Some of the typical ones you see, which would be super obvious to most people, would be some sort of an abuse happening in the home, but it can also be the death of a parent. It can be a parent has mental health issues, the child has mental health issues. There are loads of things that fall under adverse childhood experiences, ACEs. You can Google that and it will give you massive amounts of information. This pandemic has everything ripe for an adverse childhood experience. Everything about things that are happening right now. Your kid is out of school, they have no schedule. We have kids who are hungry now and we're trying to feed them. We have parents who are out of work. We have students who are caring for younger kids. Our world is a little chaotic right now. And there is this vast potential for it to leave, to flip that switch that we were talking about before and leave that switch up into that weird flight or flight and never be able to calm down. What we want to do is little green guy there in the middle is interrupt that trauma. And we interrupt that by our self-regulation, helping our kids regulate, staying calm. If that is turning off the news, turn it off. Just turn it off. You can read that later on your own time. Your kids don't need to hear all of it. It's also, however, not lying to your kids. Okay, kids, don't do that. Don't sugarcoat things. You can tell the truth in kindness and compassion, and that makes them feel a lot better. But interrupting that trauma, we end up back down here at our positive experience. It's like, wow, this totally happened and we totally came together. I mean, we see this every day on the news as well. We just had in Newburgh, and it's happening in loads of other places, there's this gorgeous homemade banner in front of the hospital that says, "Heroes work here." These are things that we need to acknowledge and look at too. Think about, as Mr. Rogers says, the helpers, because I look at that all the time, and look at the helpers and what the helpers are doing. Look at this and change the framework in which you see it. Change it into, I have to stay home, into, I have the opportunity to stay home and work with my kid. I have a house. I have a job. I have the opportunity to do this. And if we frame things that way, and we help our kids frame things that way, that interrupts that trauma and makes this a shared experience, a shared crazy experience, but not something that's flipping a switch.
Gotcha. So it's really the negative, like re-emphasizing the negative in the negative. And not only is there COVID-19, not only is it,
Yes.
am I home, but you haven't done your math, and
Exactly.
let's glaze it into you until you get it done. And so,
Yeah.
and so if we can kind of relax, say, okay, maybe math is not why I'm angry right now.
Yeah. Maybe it's not that it's math. You got to really look at those emotions, because then you can express them appropriately. Like what I was talking about the ruler before, you name it to tame it. Because if you can say, I'm really angry because I'm sad that I'm not going to, I didn't realize last Thursday or 2 weeks ago, Thursday was the last day I was going to get to see my friend. I didn't realize that was the last day I was going to get to do that. And be sad about that. And then you move on, because then once you name it, you can regulate it. You regulate those emotions, and then you can move on. Because like I said, I feel like I've said regulate a whole bunch of times, but it's the truth. Here's what, this might not be the most popular opinion going around there. I know it is with teachers, but here's the deal. If your kid, first of all, let me put the caveat so I don't have teachers on my butt, because ODE has just said that we are going ahead with actual grading and doing distance learning. So please do your homework. Please do the things that your teachers are asking. So please understand that. However, please understand If they miss the last 2 months of third grade, who the hell cares? Okay? If they miss the last 2 months of third grade, but they know that they are loved and that their community loves them, hallelujah. Call that a win,
Yeah.
because we are going to be making up this. There's no way around it. It's impossible to say, okay, we're going to learn everything we can remotely that we were going to learn in the sweet spot that was right after spring break. It isn't going to happen. Release it. Do the best that you can.
Yeah. And really, I mean, that's the hugest, that's grace right there, is doing the best you can and
Absolutely.
helping other people do the best that they can.
Hi, I have a question, and thanks for all of this information. I'm wondering if you have a resource or a tip of some sort or a method in helping de-escalate those emotions. So naming it tames it, but is there something or like a method of some sort to help de-escalate?
Well, I think it's really easy, especially when it's your own kid. We know this. We treat our own kids different than other kids. It's just the way it is. It's really easy as a parent to throw gasoline on a fire. It just is. It just is. I am a huge fan of, and I hesitate to use the word timeout, but I mean for everybody. Everybody steps back. Everybody's going to take a breath, and then we're going to set a timer, and we're going to come back in 2 minutes. Okay? We're going to come back. We're going to do a 2-minute check-in. How are we at this 2 minutes? Do we need another 2 minutes? And this is everybody. This isn't just the chicklets. Where's everybody at in here? Take those 2 minutes. The first minute, you can breathe. You can go scream in your pillow. You can have a moment, whatever that needs to be. And then you start, okay, how am I really feeling? Am I just frustrated because I can't go outside? Am I frustrated because I don't know this math problem? And any of those things that we talk about. That way you've named it. And now you're going to be like, okay, you know what? I'm just really sad. I'm sad that I didn't get to, go on my graduation trip. Okay, so let's just talk about that. So I know you're really mad at me because I made pancakes instead of chicken. So are you really mad at me about the pancakes, or are you mad because you didn't get to go on your trip? So let's talk about that. And then when everybody's in the frame of mind to be able to chat, you chat. There's no sense. You don't even try when people's, switch is flipped. When you're up here, we've all seen the tantrums. We've all had 2-year-olds or seen a 2-year-old in a store where they're laying flat screaming. Well, you can't reason with that. You can't, any more than you can reason with a teenager who stomps through the house and slams the door. Okay? What you do is you wait, then you knock on the door and you say, let's have a conversation. And it isn't easy. And there's going to be a lot of I'm sorry's from both sides, because I'm sorry I didn't hear you. I'm sorry I didn't listen to you. What are you saying? A lot of, I am feeling this way. This makes me feel this way. And less accusing. You did this. You made me do. Let's not do that. Let's take it in on ourselves. And then, and remember, generally speaking, you're the grown-up. Put your grown-up pants on and be the grown-up and say, you know what, we're going to take 2 minutes. We're going to take 2 minutes. I need 2 minutes. I think you do too. I'm going to set the timer and I'm going to come back, because that's your job. I will say that I shared a Google Doc of a bunch of resources. If anybody would like those resources, I think I shared them with Jeff, so we can tack those on someplace. So they're learning resources for when you're at home. That might be helpful for you too.
Sherri, what I'm getting out of this and what I was surprised by is how important, I was just really, I realized that this is not just learning that we're doing. This is not just teaching somebody a thing. This is actually managing a crisis and also trying to create some normalcy, which it is school.
Mm-hmm.
And it's really interesting to consider this, to realize, to get, maybe take ourselves off the hook, create some self, regulating elements so that we can be present in an environment that is kind of scary,
Yeah,
and being able to share that information.
absolutely. Absolutely.
Give us a final thought.
My final thought is wash your hands and be safe. Secondly, show grace. I know I think my colleagues are tired of me saying that, but now that they're saying it, and that makes me happy, because it's like, you're right. Show grace. We are used to, as teachers and as parents, knowing all the answers. We just are. And guess what? We don't have them. And that's okay. So release the guilt, release release the fact that you ate those 2 or 10 chocolate chip cookies at 9 a.m. It's okay. Um, show that grace as well. And here's the deal: you're going to mess up. That's okay. Try again tomorrow. Regulate again tomorrow.